Hello everyone. For my project, I decided to talk about the different perceptions of whether or not the police, act respectfully, act, disrespectfully, how an officer's behavior can either, escalate or de-escalate a situation, and how their behavior also can really harm their department's, overall, rating or legitimacy. I chose this topic, I don't know exactly why. I just remember reading in the textbook, going through that one section. I thought it was really interesting how there was one section that mentioned how there had been officers who were making certain comments, and I'm assuming saying, calling people certain names while they were being observed, yet the observers didn't yell at them or punish them in any way. So I thought that was really concerning, that the observers, the ones who were in charge, supposed to make sure that everything was running smoothly and justly, they just kind of let it slide, because if they let it slide, then how are we going to stop this? And one of the other main things just that I had found out about it, just going back in the textbook, was saying that the perceived disrespect from the person who's getting arrested, or who's being, I don't know if detained is the right word, but the person who the police officer is talking to, if they're disrespectful to the police officer, usually that kind of triggers the officer to use more force than is kind of necessary, which is frustrating, seeing that a lot of people, myself included, we believe that the police should be good at de-escalating situations rather than escalating them, because I think it's pretty fair to expect someone who's being questioned by the police to be disrespectful, seeing that if they're innocent, they're probably wondering, why are you bothering me, why are you questioning me, something like that. Obviously, it would be ideal if both parties exhibited respect, but it's more serious when the officer is disrespectful, because that leads to issues with, misconduct, and that can really hurt the legitimacy of a police department. One of the articles that I read by, I believe, Sarin et al., from 2004, so it's a little outdated, but I still think that it's relevant to what's going on today. The article explained that liberal people and black people kind of see the police misconduct as more of a serious issue than conservative people or white people, and I would agree that that is still incredibly relevant today, especially with, the Black Lives Matter movement and, the thin blue line stickers on people's cars. You can still kind of see that theme pushing through even today. And one of the big issues with that is that that idea of, roughly half, people, whether, if we're just breaking it down with liberal and conservative, liberals see that the way that police are acting really decreases their legitimacy. So basically that prevents, or I guess it inhibits police officers from being able to exhibit their full authority really without any consequences, because basically legitimacy is just saying that, the officers have the power to, call the shots. They can, decide, okay, this person should be stopped and frisked, all of those kinds of things. So if people are feeling that the police don't make the correct decisions, if they have bias behind those decisions, then it kind of deteriorates the trust that people have in that system. And I think it also definitely ties into procedural justice, how when people aren't treated respectfully by police officers, it really kind of escalates the situation as a whole and can lead to even more disrespect from both parties. One of the other things from the textbook mentioned that a pattern of abusive language helps to deteriorate the connection between the police and the community, because if the same groups of people are always being harassed or disrespected by the police, why would they trust the police? Why would they think the police are good at doing their job? Why would they call them for help in the case that they need it? And then just with how procedural justice is talking about, basically, even though people may not get the verdict that they want, people may get a ticket, people, may be found guilty of something. If they believe that the steps taken to get that end result were fair, they were taken, without misconduct, without bias, without prejudice, anything like that, if they believe that the process was fair, they're more likely to accept the verdict. Which again, that ties into the police legitimacy, because if you believe that, law enforcement is following everything, by the books in a good way, you're more apt to believe that whatever punishment or end result you have is legitimate. And then another thing that I thought was really interesting in one of the other articles that I read by Nix et al. From 2017 was mentioning that it's not exactly the race of, I guess, a suspect that will impact the officer's behavior, but the suspect's behavior will, which I thought was really interesting. Basically, it's saying regardless of somebody's skin color, if they're respectful, they should be treated respectfully by the police, but if they're disrespectful, they'll probably be treated disrespectfully by the police. But I thought that kind of disagreed with what we had talked about in the textbook, seeing that we see just how disproportionate the amount of interactions that people of color have with the police, and how many of them, like I had mentioned from the other article, see that the misconduct, they tend to rate it heavier than white people. So overall, I just thought it was really interesting how the presence or lack of disrespect or respect can really, I guess, kind of topple down the whole system of legitimacy and procedural justice in such a quick process.